Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Strategy Show Sims Tournament Edition. Glad to be here with you guys. Interesting Thursday night game. What a terrible. The Broncos offense, they might just be frauds at this point. I mean, I'm really considering that they are. And the defense is fantastic. Geno Smith, I mean, God knows what's going on with that guy. But I don't know, Greg. You come off a 10-7 game like that. Once again, the Broncos had one full game that they've put together all season long. It was against the Dallas Cowboys. Outside of that, like, okay, they just come from behind and win by a point at the end of the game. Pretty brutal.
They are reminiscent of last year's Chiefs in terms of a team that, now I know the Chiefs ultimately end up going to the Super Bowl and whatnot,
and getting killed.
But last year, that Chiefs team in the regular season, like, something doesn't smell right here. It's like they're playing shitty teams. They're winning on the flukiest of fluke circumstances with just a minute left. Another thing, just for my for my personal betting from last night that I thought was pretty funny. So I had posted out, Loughy, the way to enjoy shitty Thursday night football games, because I had a feeling early in the day it was going to be pretty shitty. I go to exchanges like a prediction market like Kalshi, and I just try to take unders on everything. Because then if the game is terrible, cool, I'm just rooting for 3 and outs anyway. The first 2 orders I got filled on the game were Genti to not score a touchdown and Troy Franklin to not score a touchdown.
Oh, my God. The only 2 touchdowns. Isn't that lovely? That sucks, dude. But, I mean, a lot of other unders would have hit. Bowers under would have cleared easy. Sutton would have cleared easy. I mean, most of these guys, the unders would have hit. So I threw like a parlay together late because there was a boost. That didn't win. I think all 3 legs lost. Small play. But the Michael Mayer, at least, I got that over receptions in the first, like it was midway through the second quarter. And I was like, all right, well, at least, now the other stuff is whatever. But yeah, just a gross game. It happens sometimes. We got some great games, though. We got some great games coming up for Sunday. I'm genuinely looking forward to some of these. And also, I'm not saying it's going to be a massive concern, but if you have not looked at weather yet, there's some weird spots, Greg. Again, we're still a few days out, a couple days out, but Chicago, 34 degrees at kickoff with a chance of snow, 14-mile-per-hour winds in that one between the Bears and the Giants. That's kind of an interesting spot. You got several dome games, actually a handful of them, and most of them seem okay. But then you have a lot of other games where it looks like you could have a decent amount of rain. So all I'm saying is if you're watching this on Saturday night or something, just keep that in mind when you're making builds to keep your eye on weather because anything can change throughout the week.
Yeah, and you and I were briefly talking about it before the show started. It's not just the weather, but injuries. That's something else that can end up playing a role for this slate because we've got a handful of players who are questionable. We're kind of getting to that point in the season where more guys are going to be on the injury report. And even though we had a lot of guys early on the season get ruled out, now we've got a lot of guys who are just kind of like questionable. We're not exactly sure the status of, and probably won't know until those midnight Saturday, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter messages about so-and-so. They're optimistic this guy's going to play. They're doubtful this guy's going to play. But there's definitely some injury situations that we're unsure about at the moment.
Yeah, it was weird because you got like Brian Thomas Jr., who they're like, oh yeah, he could probably play this week. And he hasn't practiced yet. Mm-hmm. So you still have no Brian Thomas Jr., you still have a bunch of like Terry McLaurin's definitely not playing, right? They already know that. Who else? Oh, Garrett Wilson, Rome Odunze should be fine. Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving still aren't practicing. Ricky Pearsall still not practicing. Kayshon Boutte did not practice last week. So yeah, I mean, it's not that much, but you'd like to see James Cook get a full practice in today. You'd like to see, Rico Dowdle get a full practice in today with that quad injury. Ramondre Stevenson still not practicing. Aaron Jones, Kamara limited. So, yeah, it's not everybody, Greg, but there's definitely a good amount of quality players who, if they're out, they're going to impact the slate a lot.
Yeah, and I don't think you said his name, or you may have just, I may have missed you saying it when we went over the names, but Chris Godwin, just so as far as because there's so many, even if Godwin plays, it's so uncertain what his actual health is. But I think Godwin playing would actually be a pretty nice boon to Emeka Egbuka, just because something that you and I talked about on Wednesday, it seems like he's struggling a little bit as like the alpha number 1 guy without any other support from Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or something like that, because he's getting the targets in recent games, and it's insane lacks of efficiency with the defense being able to key in on him. Where we got some recent games, Igbuka last week, 9 targets. He catches 3 of them for 35 yards. The week before, 12 targets. He catches 4 of them for 58 yards. Then he had 2 catches for 24 yards the week before. So the last 3 games have been really rough for Igbuka. And normally we think, hey, a player's out. This is going to benefit a guy because they get more usage. I think he could really use a Mike Evans or Chris Godwin sort of player back. Obviously, Mike Evans isn't coming back anytime soon, but Godwin coming back, I think, could help him a little.
You mentioned this the other day, and I tell you what, I agree with you. That isn't to say that Igbuka can't go out and have a good game, but this is not an easy matchup. You're going up against Christian Gonzalez. So, if you're Mike Vrabel, Greg, and like put yourself in that position, put yourself in Vance Joseph's position yesterday. Clearly they tried to take Brock Bowers out of the game. Mm-hmm. What did he finish with? Like 1 reception. I know it was a 30-yard reception. I think he finished with 1 or 2 receptions.
Yeah, that wasn't 1 for 39.
Yeah, that wasn't accidental. It wasn't like, oh, good job, guys. We didn't know if we'd be able to stop. No, you're going in and you're trying to stop Brock Bowers. So why would you not try to do the same thing with Emeka Egbuka, given that Mike Evans isn't going to play and it appears Chris Godwin's out again? I'm with you. As a matter of fact, I don't like that spot for him much at all. But who knows? Could he still go out? Of course. He's very talented. He's been a force in the end zone. He could go out there and have a big game. But I'm with you. If he ends up being out there on his lonesome, it's probably a spot that I get away from. Also, and we can dive into it right now. We've got the Sims pulled up. You already ran it. We'll throw it up on the screen right now. But if you look at some of the other wide receivers, I don't think you really need to force guys in at higher price points. Like there's some really good guys up there where I don't know if I need to be like, well, I guess I'll go with him today. No, there's some great plays.
Yeah, without a doubt, especially on the high end where we've got Puka Nacua on the slate. We've got JSN, who he is establishing himself not just as a fantasy star, but just one of the elite, unstoppable wide receivers in the league. So you got a couple of really good pay up options. You got guys in the mid range that are just flat out underpriced. Dave Flowers at $5,900 with Lamar back and healthy. That's one that stands out. So looks like also the expensive guys are still just simply not pricey enough. Like JSN should be over $10,000 with how he's been playing.
That's true. He should. And then when he goes over $10,000, he'll have a 5 fantasy point game. Yeah. That's how it goes. Now he should. And by the way, shout out to our friends here. Plan B Smoothies. Happy birthday, Greg. Loughy. Greg, you take your chew. What is he talking about? Like a blue chew or something?
Yeah. That's been a big thing on the streams lately. Is everybody thinks I'm just showing up erect for some reason. I haven't quite figured out. It's funny, but I don't really know what the origin of it was. But yes, Plan B Smoothie. Shout out. Thank you very much.
Not erect, but erect. Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah, harder than a diamond.
Isn't it that it could cut a diamond?
Well, it's got to be. It's got to be because it's got to be that it's harder. It's not that it's sharper, right? It's not like all of a sudden you've got, because that could be problematic if all of a sudden you're just tearing through things like physically. That would be an issue.
So, anyway, let's take a look, man. I'm excited because I don't necessarily know if there is a specific spot I love this week. Every week there are a few spots I really like. This week, I really feel like I'm just going to be spread out a lot more as far as exposures to quarterbacks and stacks go.
Yeah, and just one thing I actually want to check here. Yeah, so actually we do have Mac Jones showing up in a good amount of lineups, but there are 5 QBs that we have at least 10% exposure to. And one thing that's also pretty interesting here, Loughy, is it's a pretty good mix of stack types as well. We've got singles, we've got doubles, we've got triples. So we're getting all kinds of things from the Sims here.
Yeah. All right. So let's just dive straight into this, man. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm working with a new computer here today, and I was trying to screen share, but I still have to open permissions, and then I'd have to come back. So by Sunday, everything will be good. It is what it is. I'm not even on my normal camera. I'm on the computer camera right now, which isn't all that bad. We were talking about it before. But I was going to throw up a couple of tweets we had from yesterday. We had some insane wins yesterday. Dustin, I noticed this, and Dustin, thanks for the super chat. How do I get in the Hall of Fame? Sims hit last night. Dude, Stokastic.com/HOF. Just look at the rules right there. Just tweet. You got to tweet us if you did so already with a screenshot, preferably a nice message at StokasticHOF. And then you got to email us at support@Stokastic.com. It's all right there. You can't miss it. You can't mess it up. But we had a guy, John Jefferson, Greg, who has followed our shows for many years. And he's been saying he was going to sign up for the Sims. And even a couple weeks ago, he's like, screw it. I'm switching over to the Stokastic avatar. That's what I wanted to put on the screen. You might actually be able to. It's right there in our Slack chat. But he hits me up last night. I wake up to it like 6 a.m. today. And he goes, yo, I bought the weekly Sims package before the game started today. Dude took down the 50K. Dude took down 50K on FanDuel.
Not bad. Yeah,
so, yeah, it's awesome.
I'm pulling the screenshot right now.
But yeah, taking down 50K on your first day. Wish I could have done that, but John's an awesome guy, and really happy to see that. So tell you how to get the Sims free in a little bit here, but let's dive into some of the information we have. But yes, very cool and excited. I saw a ton of wins coming in across my Twitter yesterday. So it looked like it was, those low scoring slates are typically better for most people. Like at least us, people using the tools in the Sims.
Yeah, here's I just pulled a bunch of the screenshots that we got from last night, and you guys can see there's a handful of new ones that are here. Where is Dustin? Oh, there we go. All right. So here, you guys could see all of the different winning screenshots that we had come in just from yesterday for the NFL slate. Absolutely crushed. A lot of people might look at this and be like, hey, last night's game sucked. But like Loughy said, not for us, it didn't. We had numerous wins yesterday. You guys could see across all buy-in levels, single entry contests, the quarter jukebox you see there, the mini max, the flea flicker. That's the $5 entry. D-Money won that, split with a few other people, won $7,300. You've got another secondary mini max, Mark J won. You see he tied with a bunch of other Stokastic avatars. And then also an NBA, Mystic Q. He took down $100,000 in NBA a couple days ago, ended up beating me out. I was at the top of that one too. So yeah, it's been a really good run for the tools, both NBA as well as NFL.
Hell yeah, man. As always, use the link in the description. If you haven't done so yet, just go in, sign up with any of our sportsbook partners or sweepstakes books that are available in 40 plus states, or DFS pick'em sites if you're in non-legal betting states. Follow those 4 steps. You'll see it in the description. Tap it if you're on your phone. Click it if you're on your desktop, whatever it may be. A lot of people have done this recently, and a lot of low-stakes players who are seeing results and realizing that they can deposit $5 or $10 on these books, and every single time they do it, they get another free month of the Sims. So that is the way to do it if you're looking to get involved on the Sims for any sports you want. All of the tools available for free when you sign up and deposit and place a bet with one of those partners. All right, let's zoom in a tiny bit there just so everybody can see it. It's actually not all that bad, but yeah, there we go. That's perfect. So Dart, Allen's interesting in that spot against Miami. Really interesting. Mac Jones, we don't expect Purdy to play again. Man, that turf toe has held him out for a long time now. And then Darnold against Arizona. I don't love that spot. I do like getting to Lamar here. Drake May, Jacoby Brissett. But you see what look at? Can you just go out into QB exposures instead of stack exposures just to see if we're – yeah, look at that. I mean, it's kind of flat when you think about it. It just – goes down a little bit on each one of these guys. It's not really all that significant.
The guys we like are also not massively popular. 7% ownership to Mac Jones, 8% to Drake May, 8% to Jackson Dart. They're not uber contrarian either, but it's not like somebody's pulling 17% ownership and getting to 20% of them or something like that. Like, these are moderately owned quarterback options. And then even some of the other ones, like Or we're getting to Lamar Jackson, but we're even with the field. We're getting to Josh Allen, but we're even with the field on him. This is a fun slate to kind of mix and match different kinds of stack types.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. And I don't think you have to take massive stands in this game. Now, the one guy that I would consider, and it looks like we're getting none of, I mentioned it earlier in the week, I would get to some Davis Mills if we want. If I think the Davis Mills Nico stack is fine. I can tell you right now, the props on it aren't good. They're not going to show up. Like over on Tails 2 days ago, I threw the Nico Collins prop an over. Greg, it was 56.5. I was like, I just have to. 56.5 for Nico Collins. I have to bet that. And now it's up to 62 in some spots. But yeah, see, he's not going to project particularly well. Probably a guy that I boost a little bit. And I see some people in chat saying, it takes a little while to learn how to use the tools. Yes and no. I mean, you could run them on factory settings and still do fine. I will say this much. The biggest mistake a lot of people use or have with the tools is they overcomplicate it and they start making tweaks and changes that are actually hurting their lineups. It's not a terrible thing to boost players sometimes, but Greg and I said earlier in the season, there was 1 week where, both of us did not have a great day. And no, actually we had a decent day, but what happened was the only players that didn't do well were like the 2 guys you and I boosted. I think one of them was Ladd McConkey, and I forget who the other was, but just don't go too heavy-handed with this stuff, and essentially let a lot of the tools do the work. Understand how to smooth out your exposure if you're looking for less volatility, and that's all there is to it. But I'll boost Mills and Nico a little bit. Are there any quarterbacks that you could see yourself maybe getting a little bit more of?
Let's see. So for myself, this is an ugly one, but yes, JJ McCarthy. It's just $4,900 is such a cheap price point, and I think there's also a scenario here where the Ravens just beat up on the Vikings. We've seen so many slates over the course of the last few weeks. The winning stacks, it's just teams that play in a lot of garbage time. Like even though the Bengals, the end of the game was clearly not garbage time. What happened leading up to the end of the game was the Bears thought they had that game won. They played a prevent defense for most the entirety of the second half. And Joe Flacco to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they just moved the ball and threw a bunch to Chase Brown as well. They just moved the ball at will down the field. And the Bears thought, whatever, it's not going to matter. They don't have enough time to come back.
Yeah.
At $4,900 price tag for JJ McCarthy against what's been a weak pass defense this year in the Baltimore Ravens, you could see a scenario where he also looked better last week than he did earlier on in the season. That's not saying much because he looked completely terrible early on in the season, but he's only $4,900. He has talented guys to throw to in Jordan Addison and also in Justin Jefferson, obviously, to a lesser extent, TJ Hawkinson, because I think he's kind of a little bit washed at this point. It just doesn't take all that much for a QB at $4,900 to end up being a good stack. So that's a cheap one that I'll end up boosting if I do only get to 2.7% of him.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I mean, look, if I'm going to sit here and say that I think Davis Mills is fine, I can't tell you that JJ McCarthy isn't. But again, you don't need to get much of these guys to get over the field either. It's not like you're going to need a ton at all. Mills is probably going to be like 1% owned in a spot like this because he's not that good.
Yeah.
But Nico Collins is. You look at that game too, the Caleb Williams spot against the Giants. We're getting none of him. DJ Moore and Rome Odunze should be fine. How much Dart are we getting again?
Dart is showing up in 15% of lineups.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just the rushing upside. He has a lot of rushing upside. A heck of a lot of rushing upside is going to lead to, big performances. And it's actually the floor on somebody like Jackson Dart is going to be markedly higher than a lot of these other guys who don't have the rushing upside, right? If you're, say a lot of these guys actually can move, but if you're a non-mobile quarterback and you're statuesque and you have a bad game throwing the football, there's no real recourse there. There is one other guy I wanted to ask you about though, and we're not getting much of him. Mm-hmm. And it surprises me a little bit. Jared Goff stacks. They're coming off of a bad loss at home. They were coming off a bye. They lose to the Vikings as 9.5 point favorites or 8.5 point favorites. Sorry. 8.5 point favorites. They lose outright and they were the rested team coming on against JJ McCarthy. And now you're going up against what feels to be a pretty lifeless Washington team. And the line is actually moving towards Washington. Sometimes I feel like the quote unquote sharp money comes in on teams like Washington because historically that's been the move in these spots when all of the public, and there's a lot of public money coming on in on Detroit. But sometimes I feel like it's just an old way of doing things that's kind of like, I don't know, it just feels antiquated sometimes. Some of the teams in this league right now, Greg, and I'm not saying they can't cover, but some of the teams in the league right now are just so bad that it's really hard to put a number on it.
Yeah, 8.5. That is a very large spread for the Commanders being at home. So, like, I get it from that standpoint. I don't have a bet on the game. If you told me right now I have to bet the game, I would be more inclined to take the Commanders plus 8.5 at home than the Lions minus 8.5 on the road. All that aside, I do agree with you. This is a spot with the Commanders where I know that there was actually pretty good news that came out with Jaden Daniels this morning in terms of no ligament damage, isn't going to require surgery. That seems all like a best case scenario for him. But all that said, still, the Commander season is more or less over at this point. And I have to imagine that they're pretty deflated right now. And this is one of these scenarios where you could just see players not trying to think the right way to frame this, not necessarily not show up, but just get to a point where you trail early in the game and it's just like, what's the point? And you could just kind of see the Lions run up the score a little bit. The Lions also a team that do not take their foot off the gas pedal. We've seen some games in the Dan Campbell era where they're winning by 3-4 touchdowns and they're still throwing the ball towards the tail end of the game. So I do agree with you from that standpoint now that you've brought it up. Jared Goff, I could definitely see myself wanting to get more than 1% of Goff.
Greg, this is the type. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just now then we just have to figure out who he's going to throw the ball to. Right. But I'm okay with that. If the point you made, I had mentioned to Ben earlier in the week that if this game is competitive at halftime, there's no way I'm not hammering the Lions pretty much like whatever the number is in the second. Like if you've got this game, right, and it's a 7-7 game like it was Kansas City, I actually bet Kansas City second half spread before the game started last week because these teams come out, they're like, all right, we got something to prove. We got to come out. And then you go into the locker room if you're Andy Reid and you go, fellas, what are we doing? And then you come and you beat the brakes off of them. Tell me if it's a 7-7 or like 14 game at halftime that the Lions wouldn't look mighty good coming out of the half, knowing what Dan Campbell's going to do.
Yeah, for sure. No disagreements there. So now that we've talked through it, if I'm picking two QBs to ROI boost, it's the two guys we mentioned, JJ McCarthy and Jared Goff. It would be those two for me.
Me too. And Mills, we're not getting any of him, but I'd sprinkle. Somebody asked where we're at on somebody like Jacoby Brissett. Look, he has acquitted himself really well. He is really cheap. I love seeing these type of reclamation projects, these stories. We saw it with Baker. We saw it with Sam Darnold. And now maybe you're seeing it with Brissett as well. I don't love this spot in Seattle, though. It's probably not one I get a ton of. But, hey, the Sims are getting some of him because he's 4,600, and he has two guys that he's going to look to go to predominantly, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. So, you know what? If you're saying just from an overall concentration of volume, of passing volume, Jacoby Brissett at that price doesn't look all that bad. But I do think there's a very real possibility this dude turns back into a pumpkin against the Seattle Seahawks this week. So personally, not a huge fan of Brissett.
Yeah, he shows up in some lineups, nothing crazy, but a lot of QBs are going to look okay at $4,600 unless it's, like Tyler Shaw or something like that. Other than that, it's going to be most cheap QBs look at least viable.
Ronnie, having Gibbs last week and watching Monty play 7 snaps in a row inside the 20 was nauseating. Yeah, I saw a lot of comments about like Gibbs just could not, like when they were blitzing, Gibbs could not pick up the blitz and they needed to throw more Montgomery in there. But, anyway, let's take a look at
these, by the way. Just kind of looking through. We got Tyler Shuck is $4,300. We've got, you brought up Davis Mills. We've got Jacoby Brissett. We've got JJ McCarthy, Mac Jones himself. I don't know why Mac Jones's price has never gone up because he's played really, really well. But I think this is the most cheap quarterbacks we've had on a slate this season.
Yeah, it's cheap playable. Sure. Yeah. Maybe even cheap starters, to your point. And yeah, it might be. McCarthy sub 5K, he's starting. Tyler Shuck is start. I don't love that, if we're being honest.
Yeah. No, that's a no for me.
And because you also have, like, you can just stick JC Horn on Chris Olave if you really wanted to. I know they moved Chris Olave around, but without Rashid Shaheed, who the hell do they have? Juwan Johnson? Like, they don't. Alvin Kamara, can we agree Alvin Kamara is done? It's a shame. He had a great career. He's toast. He's got nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 30-year-old running back. That's not really unless you're Derrick Henry, that's not really a thing in 2025 and heading into 2026. Running backs are usually, you're starting to see the end of the line when they're like 26, 27, 30 years old. That is ancient, especially when you consider the workloads that Alvin Kamara has had and the hits that he's taken. Just like look at last year, for instance, where you had him getting how many targets? He had 89 targets last year. Think how many hits he took in the open field. Here's probably the most surprising part of Alvin Kamara's career to me. Do you know how many 1,000-yard rushing seasons he has?
Maybe one. And if it wasn't one, he had one in the high nines.
0. He
had one in the high nines, right?
Last year he had 950 rushing yards. So
yeah.
He had a lot of involvement in the pass game, so his overall total yardage was good. But it's so many touches over the course of his career. He's been around since 2017, 30 years old now. Yeah, I just think that there's no tread left on the tires.
Me neither. But either way, let's take a look at running backs here. See what we can get to. Interesting position for a couple of reasons. One, I mentioned this, I think it was Monday morning, before Monday Night Football. They had released salaries, and I saw Rico Dowdle at 6,300. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, this dude's going to be super chalk. It'll be hard to get away from him if we're being honest, though. And that one question, Richie, any Darnold with JSN and Shaheed? Well, the tough part about this, Richie, is I don't know if Horton's going to play. He's still not practicing. And I assume Cooper Kupp is back, but I'm not positive he's going to play. So once we get more of a practice report Friday today, when we record this at 10 in the morning, is going to be very, very telling to see what this Seattle team looks like. But yeah, I mean, if Horton was out and Kupp was out, that could be very interesting to see some double stacks there. What is Rashid Shaheed's price point?
Let's see. By the way, good luck to any secondaries having to deal with this. He's not showing up in lineup, so I'll have to look it up separately. But yeah, good luck if you're a secondary having to deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Just good luck to you, because it's an impossible task.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. He's 5,200, by the way, in case you didn't hear me.
Okay. Yeah, my bad. I didn't hear that.
So, reasonable price point. Anyway, running backs. I want to know what you're doing at the top, and not just at the top of the price range, but at the top of ownership as well, because you're going to have guys like Christian McCaffrey once again be popular. The workload is just unmatched at this point. If you want to toggle over to running backs, James Cook, if he ends up being active, he's going to have some ownership. But Devon Achane, Ben and I talked about this, and he was off of him, and I was like, I feel like Devon Achane has to be a guy that people get to, and his projected ownership right now is even higher than I thought it was going to be. He played over 90% of snaps last week. I don't know if Ollie Gordon's going to be back, but man, Greg, even if he is, that price point on Devon Achane is pretty shocking. I know he has only had one or two, like really only one ceiling game, and the inefficiency of the offense has kind of tamped down his production, but the workload is still crazy. He still has a monster floor because of the PPR protection there. 7,400 against a team that can't stop the run, that has multiple injuries on the defensive line. I get that it's a 9.5 point spread, but man, $7,400 on a true workhorse is a tough spot to overlook.
This is the first slate I can remember in a minute where we have way more depth at wide receiver than running back. There are so many more options that I like at wide receiver than I do in the backfield. subject to change if all of a sudden we get another one of these, starting running backs get ruled out and then a backup all of a sudden looks much better than they're projected by the time we get to the weekend. But considering how many good wide receiver options there are, I kind of just want to focus more on the guys I feel good about the workload with at running back, and Achan's one of them. So I just pulled up Achan's props, and his yardage prop, receiving plus rushing, it's about 90 yards is what we're expecting from. And his reception prop, over 4.5 receptions, is minus 148 over on FanDuel, Loughy. So we're looking at right around 5 receptions for Achan. We're also looking at around 90 yards. And then also he's like even money to score a touchdown. So maybe our projection is a little bit too high on Achan considering some of his props, but I still feel really good about his workload at $7,400. I understand the ownership. I don't know that I want him well overweight to the field or anything like that. This run of Sims, we got him in 44% of lineups, but at a bare minimum, I'll probably be around the field and have him in like a third of lineups or so.
That's how I see it as well. If I end up being over, I'm not going to be upset about it though. And I actually think there is a really nice ceiling on Achan in this game, but also he could disappoint because even if they go up early, at the very least, Greg, you know that this guy is not getting phased out of the game, right? The other thing, now that the trade deadline has passed, it actually makes me feel a little bit more confident in Achan because Mike McDaniel isn't benching Tua. He still said he gives him the best chance to win. They may be out of it, but they didn't trade Jalen Waddle. They got calls for him. They didn't trade Achan. They got calls for him. The rumors had been swirling for a month now. So the fact that all of those guys are still here suggests to me that they're just going to keep running them the same way that they typically would. And it's not like a mid-season, all right, well, let's empty the bench in week 10. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were speculating that McDaniel was going to get fired weeks ago, and now he's kind of gotten a second vote of confidence from ownership. We heard earlier in the season, hey, despite reports, this guy is not going to get fired. And then the team continued to suck. We saw the weird press conferences, both from really from everybody on the team. There's been nothing but odd press conferences, no matter who it is, whether it's Tyreek Hill saying that I'm trying to remember, what did he say? I think he said that Mike McDaniel makes him piss hot before games in terms of making him motivated to play. Ownership has stood behind Mike McDaniel. And then as weird as the press conference has been for him and for Tua saying he's not tall enough to throw the Jalen Waddle at times. They haven't made any changes. Ownership has said they are not planning to fire Mike McDaniel. So it seems like there's, for whatever reason, some belief that they have a core that could do something going forward. So I think it looks like they're just going to let the season play out and just see where the chips fall.
Plus, these players can still get up for a game where you can play spoiler, right? Like, just like the Raiders did yesterday. The offense sucked, but if you want to tell me that defense was not good yesterday, you're wrong. I mean, they were swarming. They were opportunistic. They turned 2 tip passes into interceptions. I know Miami's defense is bad, but you know what? Maybe they get up for it. They had a chance to tie the first meeting against Buffalo, by the way, in Buffalo.
Close game.
And, yep, Tua threw a bad pick. If you go back and look, it was a 10-point game, but you remember it actually wasn't. Like, it was entire game was competitive. Anyway, Travis asked, how do we feel about Swift after the Monangai breakout game? Craig, I'm going exactly to what you just said. I would rather go to running backs on a nice 10-game slate where you've got a lot of really good matchups, good players, and somewhat reasonable price points, and go to guys that have a pretty good understanding of what the volume is going to look like. In this spot, now that Monangai is 56, Swift is 61, it's actually not the greatest matchup. The Giants' D-line isn't terrible. It's probably a full pass. The only thing that stands out is that it's going to be windy and it's going to be rainy, and you may go to the run game. But how do you try and play this spot here?
Yeah, I mean, if you are sometimes you just have to apply logic to some of these situations. If you're the Bears, what are you doing in the backfield? To me, it's a split. That's what you're doing. You're like, hey, Monangai looked really good last week, but at the same time, too, it's only his first season. This was the first game he'd played a significant workload. I don't think all of a sudden that means DeAndre Swift takes a total backseat. I think you leave it a 50-50 split from now and see if Monangai can keep playing like this and separate himself from Swift. But I think it's going to be something like 10 to 12 carries for each of them this weekend.
That's the kind of and that's actually how it was trending. That's how it was beginning to trend. So, yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get to some spots that you really like. I mean, if you like this, go for it. I don't think you're going to need to do this, though. Anyway, what other spots stand out to you? Any interest in? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to say one that we're getting overweight to the field to is a contrarian option that you and I talked about on Wednesday that still resonates with me and kind of correlates something we had talked about before as well with the Detroit Lions. But this game has massive touchdown upside for David Montgomery. We were mentioning how the spread is 8.5 points for the game, which even if more of the sharp money is coming in on the Commanders, 8.5 is still like a pretty decently size spread. And oftentimes in games where Detroit is up by 1-2 touchdowns at the end of the game, it's David Montgomery grinding out the clock at the end of those games. They usually like to give him some of those bumps and bruises as opposed to running down Jahmyr Gibbs in those spots. That's also why when the Lions get to the 1 yard line, it's more often than not David Montgomery who gets those touches. I think this game is ripe for David Montgomery to score a couple of touchdowns against the Washington Commanders. Obviously not a guarantee, but if you were to look at any contrarian running back, meaning sub 10% owned, and say which one of these guys is most likely to score multiple touchdowns, that's overwhelmingly to me David Montgomery. So I like him as a contrarian running back play.
So do I. We talked about it on Wednesday, right? It's a spot I like as well. 5K, nice. That defense right now is pretty gutted for Washington. The one guy that worries me, Quinshon Judkins. I don't dislike him because I do think he's very talented, but and you just Quinnen Williams is gone, Sauce is gone. Not that matters really in this spot, but Judkins, and someone actually did mention this in chat a few minutes ago. Judkins has no pass catching upside right now, not because he's incapable. He's actually not, but because you just don't see Dylan Gabriel ever throw him the ball. So he is kind of one-dimensional. He is a decimal back right now. He is a Derrick Henry style decimal back. So yeah, and I'd rather pay up a little bit higher to get to James Cook. It looks like Bucky Irving's going to be out again. I don't love Rachaad White, but I might still have more interest in White at home over Judkins, even though the matchup for Judkins is better because White is going to be involved a lot. And I'm pretty confident that no matter which way that game goes, Rachaad White's just going to be involved. And, you've seen the workload, 90% of snaps in week 7, only 55% the previous week or the following week where Sean Tucker actually played 34%. But the difference to me is that was such an easy win over the Saints because the Saints offense was so bad and they just gave Sean Tucker more opportunities on the ground. I could see this swing back in a direction where you see like another 75% of snaps for Rachaad White.
Yeah, so a couple things to digest there. First, Rachaad White, viable option, but he's also way priced up now at $6,400, so more expensive than he was earlier. And then as far as Judkins goes, I want a little bit more information on him. As of right now, I do think he is a decent-looking GPP option just from a standpoint of he's 8% owned. The Jets just gutted their defense. They were already a dog shit team to begin with, so this might be a really easy matchup for Judkins. But the other thing that I really want to have information on is, are they going to do something like get Sampson more involved this weekend? Because Judkins is coming off an injury. He was playing a really big workload earlier on in the season after he didn't have a preseason or anything like that. So I do wonder if the Browns come out and say like, hey, we're gonna take a step back on Judkins' workload just to keep him healthy down the stretch of the season. So I do want a little bit more information on him. For right now, at 8% ownership against a Jets team that just traded Quinnen Williams, I have a moderate amount of interest, but it's kind of like wait and see.
Yeah. I could definitely see myself getting to more Judkins. Like if his ownership really does come in like the 7-8% range, you could convince me that he's actually a pretty good play. Because I love Quinshon Judkins. I think he's very, very good. I really do. The offense just stinks. But yeah, you know what? If it's a neutral to favorable game script, they're going to give him the ball a lot, and that's all you can ask for. It's just tough because the touchdown equity on a team like Cleveland stinks. He's going to have to do a lot on his own. Whereas there's a lot of other running backs who can do it on their own, but can also be a product of the overall team success on offense. And that's like a David Montgomery too. David Montgomery could punch 2 in, even if he doesn't have a ton of yards. So yeah, anyway, Rico Dowdle is going to be tough to get away from. I think HN will as well. McCaffrey, just given the workload, is always tough to get away from, even though that price is up there in the 9K range. And then you know what, Greg? We talked about Montgomery, good value, but Judkins, sure. James Cook, 7,500. I'd get to some Rachaad White. Last guy I want to ask you about before we move on here. Well, actually, two guys. What do you make of Trevion Henderson, knowing that, it looks like Stevenson's going to be out again? And what do you make of Breece Hall coming off by far his best game of the season, coming out of a bye week as a slight 2-point home dog, although it's a difficult matchup against this Cleveland D?
Yeah. So for Henderson, obviously need to know, is Stevenson going to be in or out? Because for whatever reason, when Stevenson's in, the Patriots seemingly have just about no interest in giving Trevion Henderson the football. And then especially, despite all of the fumble issues of Stevenson, they still get to the 1-2 yard line. And Stevenson's getting those touches just about every single time. So do you want to get confirmation that Stevenson would be out? If that's the case, Henderson, I have definitely some interest in, because he played a really big workload last weekend. We end up seeing 14 rush attempts and 6 targets from him. I know that there was a lot made about how, he didn't get goal line opportunities. It's because there were no goal line opportunities. I believe they had one play they ran all of last week's game inside the 5-yard line and went to Terrell Jennings. It was such a small sample size, though. I tend to think if there was more goal line opportunities, we would have seen some of those touches go to Trevion Henderson. But big picture, 14 carries, 6 targets. If Stevenson's out, sign me up for that kind of volume again. And then as far as Breece Hall goes, I just don't know what I right now would just be a no for me. I'm kind of off the Jets as a whole right now.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. They had 2 inside the 10, and Jennings got both of them. But yeah, there wasn't a ton there. Henderson had 2 in the 20, but it was tough.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there was only, of those 2 inside the 10, there was only 1 inside the 5, and it went to Jennings. Yeah. So that was a situation too, where it was like, I mean, you and I both made jokes about it on social just because it was kind of a funny thing to poke at. Like, hey, this guy, Terrell Jennings,
a creative player, is getting
the The reality, though, is like, how much 20 potential touches, how much more could we have expected out of Henderson? And then I think the lack of goal line touches more than anything had to do with him not having goal line opportunities.
There were people, when I had tweeted, I was like, I hope no one ever hates me as much as Mike Vrabel hates Trevion Henderson. Mind you, that was a very situational tweet. It was right after Jennings got both inside the 10. And then later people were like, I hope I never have a football IQ as low as you do, and all this stuff. It's like, you don't understand. These people don't understand. They're not in the fantasy and the betting and the best ball space where, like, those opportunities inside the 10 are very important to us, right? Like, if Henderson got that, he goes from having a 12 fantasy point game to 18 or 19, makes a damn big difference. But I probably wouldn't go there anyway. It's a really tough matchup on the ground against Tampa Bay. Let's take a look at wide receivers, and I need to get your thoughts on the top, because if you go, can you sort by price point for a second?
Yep.
And you guys in chat also, let us know how you're handling this, right? Let us know how you're handling this spot at the top with Nacua, JSN. St. Brown is in a phenomenal matchup. That Washington secondary is very bad, man. Very bad. To the point where I think you could even consider going back to some Jamison Williams, assuming he's going to be at low ownership. And then Justin Jefferson with McCarthy, he's getting some ownership. We're not getting much exposure to him or St. Brown. I could say this, and you might disagree with me here. You guys in chat may as well. I would be giving an artificial boost to Amon-Ra St. Brown. If Sunday comes around, then I'm only getting 6%.
So as of right now, I disagree with you, but that's subject to change, because right now, his ownership is too similar to Puka Nacua and JSN to me, and I think that they are way better options. So if we get to a scenario where Sunday rolls around, Amon-Ra St. Brown is 10% owned, Puka Nacua and JSN are both 30% owned, that's a little bit different of a scenario. But how we right now have it projected, Nacua, JSN, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Egbuka are all projected for about the same ownership. In that scenario, I just want to gravitate towards the guys that I think should be projected the best, and the guys we do have projected the best are Puka Nacua and JSN. As long as they have comparable ownership to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't want to play Amon-Ra St. Brown at about the same ownership as those guys.
I think you're downplaying how good St. Brown has been.
It's not necessarily downplaying how good he's been as much as there are so many more weapons in the Lions offense and the ball gets spread around that the production for Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's just not close to what JSN and Puka Nacua's has been in games that, well, for Puka, just him being healthy. And then JSN just basically never has bad games this season. Their workloads are so much higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown's. It's not about how good he is individually. It's just the volume isn't there for him in the same way it is for JSN or Nacua.
That's not true, man. Like, he has a 32% target share on the season.
But if you look at just the total targets, he's had what? So he's had about half his games. He has 10 plus targets. Whereas you look at Puka Nacua in terms of the games that he has played to completion, and in games that he has been totally healthy for, he's only had one game less than 10 targets, and it was 9 targets. You look at JSN's...
He has 4 fewer targets than JSN on the whole season.
So JSN has, 79 targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown. All right,
I saw 78 and 74, but I'm just saying, I if you remove that first week 1 game from St. Brown, this isn't even really worth the argument, right? Because they're all good, and we just have different opinions on this one. But I guess what I'm saying, I do think St. Brown in a spot like this, like St. Brown has as high a ceiling as any receiver in the league. I have very little doubt about that. Like, legit his 3 touchdown upside.
Yeah, his absolute ceiling games, I agree. Well, actually, I still think that Puka Nacua and JSN have higher ceilings than Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Puka does not.
You don't think Puka does?
No, because the touchdown equity is lower with a guy like Puka than it is with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I don't know that I could just be on the wrong side of this, but at least I think the target ceiling is higher for JSN and for Puka Nacua than Amon-Ra St. Brown. There are some games where Matt Stafford just kind of locks into Nacua and only throws to him. And you see those games where he gets like 15 plus targets. There's just so many more weapons that Detroit has to utilize. But yeah, I did pull up the numbers, and I do think I'm probably overstating the volume gap between Amon-Ra St. Brown and JSN, but I still do expect more often than not JSN to get more targets than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think his floor for volume is higher as well.
All right. Either way, this whole trio of receivers looks good this week for sure. We're not getting any Nico. That's a guy I'll probably try and get some of. You know why? Because a lot of times you see these backup quarterbacks come in. When you have an elite wide receiver, you just look to target them. It's very possible that Nico just gets there on volume alone. And maybe you could argue he's a little bit overpriced. I know our tools don't love him this week. Totally fair. His props aren't all that great. But I'm not convinced this Jacksonville team is all that good. I'd get to some Nacua. I don't love Ibuka here, but I'll get a little bit. If he really is 21% like we're projecting right now, there's no chance I'm not very underweight on Ibuka. And I know that is one that you're going to agree with me on, because at that price point, that means you have to forego some other really good options at pretty much every position.
Yeah, I mean, his ownership has to come down. I can't believe that he's going to be just as popular as Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN, and Nacua.
I agree. More popular than St. Brown. Yeah. What about Zay Flowers against Minnesota here? He's still in the sub 6K range. And if you want to sort back by exposure, go for it. I just wanted to take a look at those top guys.
Yeah, so there's some standout top guys that we just went over, and then you get into the mid-range. Zay Flowers just underpriced because he's still kind of priced some of the lingering effects of Cooper Rush being his quarterback and Lamar Jackson being out. So you do have Zay Flowers at $5,900. Zay Flowers should be like mid to high 6K range. So he's somebody at $5,900. I think as long as Lamar stays healthy, I think this is the cheapest that Zay Flowers is going to be the rest of the season. So I think it's a good buy low spot for him. He's going to be somewhat popular for sure. There's nobody who's uber popular at the wide receiver spot, but still 21% owned. He's got a little bit of ownership to him, but certainly somebody who want to be overweight to the field too. And actually, I do have posted now to my Tails profile, Loughy. I've got the initial version of my single entry lineup up. I was going to post it the other day, but then I had some other stuff that I wanted to pin to my profile on Twitter, on Tails, pertaining to some of the portfolio EV success that I've had lately. But now I've got pinned to my profile my single entry lineup, which if you guys go over to Tails and you like that post, if it comes in the top 4 of the SPY this weekend, I'm going to give away $1,000 to one person who likes it. But the relevance to Zay Flowers is I have Zay Flowers in that lineup and Lamar is the quarterback. So that's the stack that I'm looking at.
Yeah, we talked about that one on Wednesday. I agree with you. It's a nice looking build. Make sure you're hitting that fire emoji to get a shot. If you end up winning, if you end up finishing, actually you said top 4, so you could one up me.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to
the only reason I picked 4, by the way.
I understand that. Also, I do have a question for you guys, right? We come in here, we try and, provide as good a free content as we can. Obviously, we want everybody using the tools, and the tools work. We saw a 100K winner 2 days ago in the NBA streets. We saw a 50K winner yesterday. The guy was his first. He had the Sims for 2 hours before hitting the 50K. So of course, but our number one priority, as always, and we've had multiple milli winners this year, is to always give you guys the best free content we can, not just here, but over on Tails, within the Tails app. I know Greg puts a ton of time into it. So do I. I'm betting all the plays I put on there, and so is Greg, but I take time to do, and I hope you find this valuable, like lengthy write-ups and analysis. So, I'm never pulling stuff out of my ass, win or lose. Now, fortunately, it's been profitable for both of us, but if you guys enjoy the free content, we're never going to ask you to pay for anything. We're never going to be like, oh, here we go, pull the rug out. No access to Tails, no access to the free DFS and betting content on Tails. All our YouTube stuff is going behind the paywall. That's never going to happen. I can say that with certainty. If it was, I would quit. Not even kidding. I would quit. I would. But if you guys take a second and have a minute today, whatever you may be doing, to hop into the App Store, the Google Play Store, type in Tails, and just rate and review the app. Give it a 5-star rating, leave a review. Anytime they're personal reviews, we love those because, I see a lot of them and I know you guys, right? And those are better to read. But anything, even if it's just like great app, goes an incredibly long way for us. So it helps us keep putting free content out there, keep building these platforms, keep making them great for everybody. And that's the role you guys could play, is to hit us with a review. And to those of you who have already done it, greatly appreciated. If not, it would be huge. Clayton, the most important thing is you guys never mail it in. I take solace in the fact that I'm getting your best work. Yeah, thank you. In all seriousness, Clayton, it's true. We try and make it seem, even if we're pissed off or in a bad mood or it's a bad day and you didn't sleep, that we're still trying to give you the best info out there. So anyway, appreciate it. I'm going to thank you guys in advance because I know there's a handful of you out there that will take the time today to hit us with a rating and a review in the App Store. We're climbing the ranks in a big way. We were right behind the MLB app yesterday, Greg, which, the season's over. I don't know how many people have downloaded the MLB app, but still, it's a big one. So yeah, we're building here and you guys are helping us along the way. So thank you. Anyway, we had a question from Tiffany asking about, value in Wandale and in Demario Douglas. Absolutely. It doesn't look like Kayshon Boutte going to play. I've said this to you a million times already this season, but another hamstring injury, Greg, another one. Everyone's going down with the hamstring injuries. My guess is he misses 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, Demario Douglas against the semi-pass funnel Bucks defense and Wandale. Wandale may benefit from wind and rain, if we're being honest, dude, because he's like a 5-yard ADOT guy.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of remarkable how good of a season that Drake May has had when you consider that his I know Stephon Diggs has kind of had his moments. I thought Diggs was going to have a really good season after he had those back-to-back 100-yard games. He's been fine, but he's ultimately kind of just been a guy for the Patriots overall. Drake May's breakout, it is really outstanding to me to consider. He doesn't have a Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have a JSN he's throwing to. It's really him doing it. I don't want to say entirely by himself, but largely he's the one who's powering the offense in a way that we see Justin Herbert or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's become one of those elite quarterbacks. And it's gotten to a point now where anybody that we could reasonably expect is going to have some kind of volume for the Patriots, I'm probably going to expect them to do well because Drake May's their quarterback.
I agree. What about Diggs? We're about with the field on him. 10% owned. We're getting 11%.
So if the slate was starting right now, I would be inclined to give an ROI boost to Diggs and to give a little bit of an ROI downgrade to Demario Douglas to even out my exposures to the Patriots a little bit here. Even though I just mentioned that, Diggs, you and I had this conversation, I think, after week 5, whenever it was that he had the back-to-back 100-yard, I guess it was week 6 after the back-to-back 100-yard receiving games. He was super chalky in a game against the Saints, and it was like, hey, rough 3 first games to start the year for Diggs, but it's a new team. He's coming back from a torn ACL. Looks like he's finding his stride, and he's just fallen apart since then. He had a 69-yard receiving game against the Titans, and then he's been under 40 receiving yards in all of the other games since the back-to-back 100-yard games. But Butte's kind of been the number one wide receiver over the last handful of weeks for the Patriots. Now you're taking him out of the mix. I definitely think it looks better for Demario Douglas, but I think it looks better for Diggs as well. So I don't only want to be invested in Douglas here. I probably want to have something like 25% of both him and Diggs.
I'd be okay with that too. It's not even that Butte's been the number one. It's that Drake May's deep balls have been so solid that it feels like Kayshon Boutte is the number one. And what I mean by that is that just every time he throws that dude a deep ball, it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but it really is remarkable the accuracy of those two guys and the chemistry that they've had downfield this year. Like, I'm going to listen to this. This is going to blow your mind. You guys, listen to this. Whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing because I just pulled it up and I'm blown away by this. Kayshon Boutte, Greg, 10 deep targets this season. That's not that much, right? 10 in 9 games. Mm-hmm. 9 receptions for 236 yards and 5 touchdowns. Does anyone understand how insanely stupid that is? Like, Douglas, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 155 yards and a touchdown on deep balls. Drake May's deep attempts have been absolutely otherworldly, man. PFF, take it for what it is, but like 99.9 passer rating, passing grade on deep attempts, 99.9 for Boutte. Just absolutely insane. He's 20 for 28 for 628 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions on deep attempts. He has been the best deep ball thrower in the entire league this year.
Yeah. And now by the way, the numbers, so take last week out of the equation when it comes to Boutte, just because he got hurt early in the game. He had 1 target and then came out. The games prior to that, 75 yards and a touchdown, included a 39-yard touchdown. 55 yards and a touchdown, included a 39-yard touchdown. 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, included 2 touchdowns of 20-plus yards. So we have seen the last 3 games that he's been healthy, he has been a massive part of the offense downfield. Stephon Diggs used to be that guy earlier on in his career. Demario Douglas, maybe a little bit more of a possession receiver, but both of them scored touchdowns last week. So I like Drake May double stacks with both of them. But just to the point of exposures, to reiterate, I think Demario Douglas looks really good. I don't want to make it seem otherwise. I just don't want to have him in 50% of my lineups. And I want to have a little bit more of Diggs than what we're getting to.
Look, I think Demario Douglas is... I'll go out on a limb and say I think he's far and away if Boutte's out, and I think he will be the best value on the slate. He has more deep targets than anyone not named Kayshon Boutte. So, yeah, I think you could see him kind of soak up a large amount of that role. He's a great, great value this week. So is Wan'Dale, but I like Demario Douglas even better. And I would consider Hunter Henry as a viable option as well. So, yeah, a couple comments to read. Number one, thank you, Michael. You are the man. And this is for people listening in podcast form. I always read these comments. Just drop that review on Tails for you. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. I'm telling you, helps quite a bit. Brandon, surprised the Supreme Juice on tails yesterday night. Does that by any chance come with OddsShopper access? You miss every shot you don't take? No, but if you hit Greg or myself up, you want a promo code, hit us up. We'll help you out. Shoot us a DM. We'll get you in the door for sure. We want everyone using those tools. So happy to help you. Kyle, calling my shot in a season of bad shot calls by me. Jerry Judy finally hits a slate. That is music to Ben Rass's ears. He wants him at sub 4K. He does. Ben said the same thing on Tuesday, that he's going back to the Jerry Judy well. I mean, I suppose there's no better time to do it going up against the Sauce Gardner-less team in the Jets. I kind of get it, but my God, has he been bad?
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you want to martingale Jerry Judy for the entire season, eventually hit on one good game. But here's my general thoughts on Jerry Judy.
There it is.
Yeah, it's just a pass for me. I do not think that Dylan Gabriel, he looks like he could be a competent backup. I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. And wide receivers loaded this week. There are so many good wide receiver options. That's
super loaded. Yeah. I probably won't. I'm not going to get to that much Olamide Zaccheaus either because Luther Burden should be back. All right. Let's take a look at tight end, see what we're getting
on.
One
super chat here as well.
Oh, go ahead.
Common pennies. What are some of the most important filters to consider when making 150 lineups? So I'm pretty sure it was you, Common Pennies, who also had a similar question on the Monday strategy show that Loughy and I did. And unfortunately, I don't really have too much different of an answer for you, which is there are no, I don't know about you, Loughy, but I don't make very many filters for NFL.
I don't do that many either. I will go in and I will make some adjustments, but typically they are small adjustments. Specific, like last week would be a good example. One of the only adjustments I made, and it happened to work, other weeks it doesn't, was boosting up Brock Bowers a lot. I wanted to get more Brock Bowers than I was getting at his price point. I think he was like 5K flat or something crazy. So I will go in and do some stuff like that. But when making 150, I don't do that much as far as filters go. As a matter of fact, Greg, I use more filters just to find lineups when I'm doing 3 max and single entry stuff, whether it's the power suite, the spy, that type of stuff, because I will go in and I will try and spread my exposures to specific stacks out more. So I'll go in by filters and I'll look for certain lineup builds that I want, and I'll do it that way. But for 150, I'm really just using uniques, because you do, in my opinion, you want to use uniques. If you're okay with just having like a super concentrated core and you have a great week, or you might have a very bad week, then don't run as many uniques. But I personally like to run typically 4 to 5 uniques on a main slate. And then for 150, outside of me boosting some individual players or maybe setting a bit of a cap, that's it. The only other thing, before I ever set a cap on a player, Greg, I am going to run it with a higher number of uniques first. I don't want to artificially change something before I run it with uniques, which might just bring it down on its own.
Yeah, I just, if you guys saw here, I just changed it to 3 uniques and favor the top lines. Actually didn't even really make that much of a difference for a main slate. Uniques make a big difference on showdown slates. There's just so many possible lineup combinations for a main slate that typically uniques aren't going to massively move the needle for a main slate. But for common pennies, so for 150 lineups, the changes that I'm making is just doing some ROI boosts to players. Like I only made one adjustment in the Sims on Sunday. It happened to be a week where I made a good decision. I made one adjustment in the Sims. I give an ROI boost of, it was either 20 or 25% to Brock Bowers, so he would show up in more lineups. That was the only change I made. I forced the tools to give me more Brock Bowers. Other than that, I just ran everything with the settings as is. I don't think there's a single lineup filter that's important at all for 150 lineups. I don't think there's a single important one.
Agreed. All right, tight ends here. I do not love the tight end position at all this week, as a matter of fact. This is one of those weeks where like we're getting a lot of Kittle, McBride, Cade Otton's popping up. Actually, I do like Cade Otton at 3,900. This may be an odd game where, Greg, on the surface, it doesn't look great. This may end up being one of those games where you could game stack it and it could potentially shoot out. Baker Mayfield is always capable of getting himself involved in a shootout. Always. So that is one of the more unique spots to me. That's probably where I could see myself getting more Emeka Egbuka too, just in kind of like game stack builds with Douglas and May and maybe a Emeka Egbuka run back, maybe even a Cade Otton run back. Those things kind of make sense to me this week the more I think about it.
Yeah, I think Cade Otton, Rachaad White, I'm probably more likely to get into run backs. By the way, we just got an update here that neither Bucky Irving nor Chris Godwin practicing today. So stands to reason both. They're out. It looks like both of them are going to be out again.
I mean, they're coming back from a bye week and still not a single day of practice. No chance. They're done. Yeah.
So in terms of power ranking, the run backs are most likely to get in a Patriots stack. It's Cade Otton 1, it's Rachaad White 2, and then Egbuka is a distant third for me for game stack purposes.
So for game stack purposes, I think Egbuka is going to be much higher for me than he would be for one-offs. Because if you need to run it up, it could be a ceiling game for him. Red Skittles, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Beautiful avatar with that Stokastic Hall of Fame ring. Had several sweats in the past week or so, grinding the tools, fell short, but I know it's coming soon. Good luck this weekend, everyone. You too, man. Feel the same way. A lot of sweats this year, haven't gotten to the top, right? Haven't gotten to the pinnacle yet, but we're still climbing, man. We're still climbing. And remember, stokastic.com/HOF. Make sure you're rocking that avatar so when you do win up to 4 times in a calendar year, you can get Sims Max. You can get all access. I mean, no better rewards program out there in DFS, hands down. It's not just a rewards program that, only gives you something great if you win $1 million. Nah, man. You could win the quarter jukebox and get a $200 value month of The Sims. You could win it again and get that again. And you could win it again and get all access for the entire month. So if you're not rocking the avatar, highly suggest you go ahead and do so. Because if you win even more. Are you on board with our exposures up top being so top heavy to these tight ends?
A little bit less so on McBride just because he's expensive, but I love the $4,500 price point on George Kittle. Cade Otton at $3,900. He makes a ton of sense as well when you consider that it looks like Chris Godwin is going to remain out. So that projection is going to stay unchanged there. And if we like the Patriots mentioned before, I think Cade Otton makes a lot of sense in run backs there. There are a couple of other tight ends who are cheaper that I'd probably want to get a little bit more of. Hunter Henry with Abute out again, him at $3,500. Wouldn't mind having a little bit more of him. And same with Mark Andrews because I'm going to be prioritizing Lamar Jackson. $3,400 is a crazy cheap price point for Mark Andrews. I'm surprised he's not showing up in more lineups at that salary.
Yes, I agree. But also, he was still his target share he had 2 touchdowns last week, which really skewed his overall production. I would even consider Isaiah Likely at 2,900. He's still sub 3K as well. We're not getting a lot of him, but he's sub 3K. He's still going to play a lot of snaps. He has, he has potential to break a couple. I'm actually somewhat interested in him on a week like this. They're going to run plenty. Maybe not plenty, but they'll have some 2 tight end sets. I would expect to get some decent Isaiah Likely. Even if I get a little bit over the field, I'd be fine there. But Hunter Henry to me, Cade Otton, Sam Laporta. If you clear that filter, I just want to show everybody who's watching. I know we're running a little bit late, but if you clear the filters and you look at these, just go to tight ends, Greg, because it didn't clear it right.
Oh, but I didn't even notice that. There we go.
You're good. Laporta's price point in a good spot, big favorites. Cade Otton at that price point with seemingly no Chris Godwin and no Bucky Irving again. Hunter Henry with looking like no Kayshon Boutte. You mentioned Mark Andrews. That is a discounted price point. Could be a shootout. There are a lot of guys down there that they might not be the most glamorous plays, but I hate to say this because McBride's connection with Brissett, particularly in the red zone and the end zone, has been fantastic. But Kittle at 4,500 as well. I look at all of these guys in the 3 and 4K range and feel like that's probably where I'm going to live.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of them. So I don't mind Isaiah Likely either, $2,900. He got 4 targets last week. It's hard to read too much into just the targets for the Ravens last week. They won the game 28-6. They only threw the football 23 times. So of those targets, it got really spread out. The most targets of anybody on the team was 5 to Zay Flowers. So just considering the score of the game, that game script, the ball got spread around. They didn't throw the ball a ton in general, but I do think that this game should be more competitive. Because just about every game you expect to be more competitive than a 22-point final spread. But Mark Andrews, $3,400. And yeah, I'll add Isaiah Likely to the mix with you as well after he got 4 targets with the return of Lamar Jackson. I don't know off the top of my head, just considering when Likely was out early in the year, has he even played a full game with Lamar this season? Before
Likely played, I believe he played 1 full game with Lamar. Yeah, actually, he was out the first, I believe, 3 weeks. And he played, he came back against Kansas City, and that doesn't even count. They got just smoked in that game. So yeah, he's played. That was the full game he played with Lamar. There's not a great sample.
No, Lamar got hurt halfway through that game.
Oh, you're right. You're right. But third quarter, right? So yeah, okay, sure. No, then that was his first full game with Lamar.
Yeah, I mean more so just in terms of getting a full snapshot of what we would expect his workload to be in a full end-to-end game with Lamar Jackson. Last week was the first time we got one. It was easily his best game of the year. The there's no real competition for it, but his season high in receiving yards before last week was 12 yards. First full game with Lamar Jackson, 4 targets, 60 yards. Clearly not a coincidence there.
Definitely.
So just kind of backing up what you were saying about having a little bit of interest in Isaiah Likely. He's somebody who could go overlooked that I think is a viable tight end option. He's underpriced at $2,900 throughout basically his entire season to this point.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And people just are going to forget that he's actually talented as a pass catcher. But they do spread the ball around. Anyway, before we get out of here, let's do one more thing. Go into lineups, Greg, and let's just see if there are any duped lineups. Like if the most popular build right now were to happen, is there going to be something that we should be staying away from? There's an 8.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
No. But looking at that, Zacchaeus will not be chalky once we get an update on Luther Burden if he plays. If DJ Moore, Burden, and Odunze are all in, I think it's going to be, I don't think that lineup right there will be duped at all, to be honest with you. Come Sunday.
For what it's worth, we do have Burden in our projections right now.
See, that's a little surprising to me that we'd be projecting Zacchaeus for those numbers then. I know he had a nice game last time out, but I think Luther Burden would end up taking away enough to where Zacchaeus doesn't look great. I know he's inexpensive, but Luther Burden, who hadn't seen a massive workload, was still, a little bit eating into what we saw from Zacchaeus. Who knows?
Bears just seem to like utilizing him for whatever reason.
They do.
I don't know why. I think they should just go to Luther Burden, but Zacchaeus has at least 4 targets in all but one game this season. He had 8 targets last week, 7 targets the week before. He did only have 3 against the Saints, but that was a comfort win. The games before that, 6 targets against the Commanders, 6 targets against the Raiders. So that's 6 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. For whatever reason, it just seems they like giving him the football.
Yep. Yeah, maybe I'm on the wrong side of that one. We'll see come Monday for sure, once we get more props released. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out as always. As you know, you want to get access to the tools. You want to do it for free. Just use the link down there. That's it. Sign up with any of our sportsbook partners. And then follow those 4 simple steps. It'll take you a few minutes. And shout out to all of you guys who have helped us with the app, reviewed it, rated it. You're the best. And if you're not using it yet, that's more important than anything else. Download it. Hop on Tails. Follow us. All of our free bets, free DFS info. Greg's got a massive giveaway going for this week because he beat me on that Philly and Minnesota bet that we forgot about. Hey, you got one, man. You got one. It's a close game now. But yeah, not just betting, but DFS stuff over there as well. So much free content and some premium stuff if you're looking for anybody else. But we'll see you guys back here Sunday. It all culminates in the big 4-hour live stream heading up to the main slate lock. And of course, big deeper dive live before lock for NBA tonight. Josh just did the strategy show for NBA. If you missed that, be sure to check it out. And we will catch you guys back here for the next one. Bye-bye.